Hi everyone, I am Asta. I am a Drupal developer at QED42. I am also an open source enthusiast and believe in making our world better place through open source and open technology contributions. So today we are going to talk about leveling up your impact by using Drupal as a digital public good. So quick show of hands, how many of you know what is a digital public good? One, okay. Okay, just one. Okay, so before we get into digital public good, let's understand what are public goods, physical public goods. So these are the things which are non-accessible to all, non-inclusive, and that means that everyone can use it. The ability of the good does not diminishes if one person use it, so it's not exclusionary, and it is not rivalrous. So two things cannot compete to be a good, public good. So for example, the air we breathe, the public education, the parks that we go on, they are free for all, accessible to all. That the road that we walk on and drive on, these are all physical public goods. Digital public goods are the things which include all these things that we discussed previously, and these. So it could be an AI model, a content, a data set, a software, or a standard, which should be open source, inclusive and accessible, sustainable and scalable, works towards public benefit, and does not cause harm by design. So let's see what exactly do we mean in that. Yeah. So for example, for example, Drupal is a digital public good. It is open source and includes all these things. Sustainable and scalable. So digital public good is a standard defined by UNDP and a couple of more organizations. And they had a goal in mind that we want to achieve these 17 set of sustainable development goals, which we will talk later in the session, by 2030. So let's now talk about how does something becomes a digital public good. So first of all, it should meet the DPG standards. So there are standards defined for something to become a digital public good. For example, the things we discussed previously, plus some more things related to the ownership of the piece of software, the privacy law that it abides by, and more things. They should submit a nomination to the DPG Alliance. So any open source project, it can potentially be a digital public good, but it's not that by default. So you have to fill a nomination form, and then it gets reviewed by the committee, and then finally it gets listed in the DPG registry. So for example, maybe we can open that if the internet is good. I don't know if you can see that. Yeah, so this is the DPG registry. You can see examples of these many digital public goods. Right now 177 goods are registered at DPGs. You can filter it by the category, the origin, or sustainable development goals. So which we spoke a little bit about in earlier. So sustainable development goals are these set of 17 goals. For example, end of poverty in all its form, zero hunger, good health and well-being, gender equity, quality education. Basically all the things which makes which helps in making the world a better place. So any digital public good should work toward enhancing at least one of these sustainable development goals. Now let's get back to the presentation. So yeah. So why did Drupal become a digital public good? And we have quite a few reasons for that. So it helps in advancing the sustainable development goals for which we just spoke about. Um, it does it in two ways. There is direct support and indirect support. So within direct support, Drupal itself is an open source tool. It is available to everyone to be accessed by. It is a source of education. So if you know Drupal, you can build sites and you can use it to gain some income by freelancing for small businesses or other companies. Drupal Jobs is an open portal. You do not need a formal degree to be a Drupal developer. If you just know how to use Drupal, you can get a job through that. And it also supports small businesses to make a footprint on the internet for themselves. So, for example, non-profit organizations or something which does not have a lot of resources to hire a big firm for their site, they can use Drupal directly just by learning some things. And as we knew from the Dries note today, it's going to be more and more accessible for the non-developers out there. It also has indirect support. So a lot of sites which use Drupal are helping in advancing the sustainable development goals. We'll talk about this in a bit. It is often a hub of mission and digital driven organization. And yeah, as we said, it empowers other organizations to advance the sustainable development goals. So these are some of the examples of organizations which are using Drupal. So UN Women's site is built on Drupal. Greenpeace UK site is also built on Drupal, that works on climate change and sustainable cities and communities. There are some other organizations like United Nations website or Marine Ecosystem Management, which are doing all these amazing things. Now, another requirement to be a digital public good is your commitment to compliance. As Dries said today, a lot of marketers struggle with different privacy policies, and a lot of CMSs do not have very easy way to get that. So Drupal has compliance built in. It is trusted by governments. A lot of governments in European, UK and Australian region use Drupal for their site. It has a lot of modules to help your site be compatible with the policies, and it is a community project, so it is a shared responsibility. You can get resources from that, but ultimately it's the job of the developer to make the site compliant. It is a standardized solution. So Drupal follows all the open standards like WCAG, ATAG and others for accessibility. It is an omni-channel delivery solution, so you do not need a full Drupal site to function. It can also work as a decoupled app. You can have a different backend to that. You can have other APIs exposed to be consumed by something else. It can work in multiple ways through REST, JSON, HTTP and other protocols. And it is community driven. So as we are part of that community, we know that there is a large community behind Drupal which helps in making it better every day, and it is always going to be an ongoing improvement. These are some of the numbers of sites which use Drupal. So currently 20 plus countries use Drupal for their government websites. 240 plus public sector use cases are documented, and almost 1 million sites regularly check Drupal.org for updates and usability. Now let's talk a little bit about why customers love Drupal. So most of the some of the reasons for that is like global credibility, as we just saw that it has a big footprint. It is well known. The non-profit appeal, it is a DPG now, and it is open source, and it is fully transparent. You do not need a lot of resources to buy the product and then also hire developers to work on that. It has community supports. Anyone can access the Drupal Slack or community channels, create an issue on Drupal.org if they have any problem. It is transparent, as we saw, and there is a market growth potential for that. So, for example, American Diabetes Association, which is also QED42's client, is a non-profit organization in the US, and it uses Drupal for multiple sites for their products. Now let's talk about, now I think we have a fair idea of what is a digital public good. So let's say, why do we even need it? What if we do not have DPGs at all? So let's go back in time. We all remember the pandemic times, right? COVID hit in 2020 for most of the world. There was just chaos all around. Vaccines were getting developed, but getting them to the people was a huge challenge. And imagine a country like India, which I think most of us in the audience are from, of almost 1.3 billion people which need a vaccine, and not having a standard way to deliver that, and making sure that everyone is administered, and also making the whole process smooth. So Government of India, this is how Government of India tackled it. We had a platform called CoWIN for tracking the vaccine details. It has a lot of graphs for what are the number of cases in your region and everything. You can book an appointment through that, and you can track the, you can get the certificate from vaccine for that. So it started with leveraging the existing DPG infrastructure. For example, we all know that Aadhaar card is the identity, the infrastructure for verifying the identity. We had that in place. There was also EVIN, which is electronic vaccine intelligence. So that was basically used for supply chain management of vaccines, and the hospitals were already using it for tracking their tracking the quantity of the vaccines, how it is getting administered, and where is it moving from, and everything. So we already had some infrastructure for that. Then there was software ownership, and there was prioritizing inclusion, user choice, and grievances. So almost 65% of India lives in rural regions, and not all of them will have access to mobile phones or internet. So CoWIN tackled it by people can go to the center and register themselves offline. It wasn't just the online way. They also, in addition to that, they also had the flexibility of choosing their centers, the vaccine that they want, and the appointment time which they are comfortable with. The workers who were administering the vaccines were familiar with the existing infrastructure. For example, EVIN that we talked about was already there, which is a simple user interface app to basically track who you have administered this vaccine from, and managing the supply chain for that. So it didn't take a lot of time for the medicos to adapt to the system, since it was already there. And also software ownership and avoiding vendor lock-ins. So a lot of these systems right now, like Aadhaar card is owned by UIDAI, EVIN is owned by some other organization. One of the challenges which UNDP faced in integrating all these things was going to these multiple vendors, of getting the ownership of that, so it can be used not just for India but other similar countries too, without any hassle. So since Cowin is not a DPG yet, it has an application pending. There was a problem of ownership in that, but when something becomes a DPG, there is a clear documentation of what is the ownership, who can use it, and the process becomes a little easier for that. So that was one of the challenge. Now imagine if we didn't had all this infrastructure and everything was just manual. So many people would have gotten wrong vaccines administered for them. So many people would have missed out on them, and let's not even get started on getting the certificates and verifying that it is valid or not. And now, who cares if Drupal is even a DPG? Yeah, it's an open source project. I use it. So what if it achieved the DPG status? First of all, we can consider being a DPG is like a stamp of gold mark, like an ISO mark kind of a thing. So it mainly affects the non-profit organization and the government sector who have a lot of policies in place on the type of product which can be used for their work, right? And imagine just skipping the hassle of checking, okay, are these checklists getting is it following all these things or not, and just using DPG status as a verification of, okay, these things will always be there. Small business owners also, since they don't need to do a lot of research in whether it would be a good option for me or not, because it has got the status. And also individuals with limited resources. So for example, a small third world country where they do not have access to a lot of resources, or they can't get paid products for most of their work, they care about the DPG status. And at the end, I'll just like to say the slogan of digital public good is unlocking the potential for open source technologies and a more equitable world. It is aimed toward making a world a better place. So when we contribute to Drupal, we are contributing to all these things. And yeah, as a reminder for that, we do have a contribution sprint day after tomorrow, so please join that. And these are the resources. I'll share the slides, and that's it.